I'm Zoe Gilbertson. I run a company called Liflad, which is a community interest company. It's basically just me trying to initiate several projects around flax. I recently did a Churchill fellowship a couple of years ago, and I got to travel all around Europe looking at my focus was small scale systems. So I was looking at cooperatives, organic growing, anything to do with flax and textiles. That was collective, cooperative, but mainly related to flax. And I kind of wrote this big report and came back to the UK to disseminate it through various networks that I run. And also was inspired to start a community project. So I have some other projects which I'm working on small scale production. So trying to process flax to make yarn and textiles, but really at the farm scale, the micro scale. And this project we're going to talk about today is about I guess the community scale, the heritage, learning how to grow flax, learning how to process flax, how we used to do it. But just also to let you know that there's another level of project, which is looking at wider community infrastructure, but really the two can inform each other. So yeah, back to Liflad. Yeah, so we're basically developing knowledge to be able to develop local textiles and working with as many people together to make that happen. Because the ultimate dream is to create these place-based, place-sourced textiles through natural systems and small supply chains. And Totnes Grows Flax project is really about community. So yeah, this is a quick overview of some various partners that I'm working with at the minute. On something we call the Southwest Textiles Commons. And Totnes Grows Flax has come out of this as being part of this ecosystem of various different flax projects. So we've got some partners, some farm partners, we've got some community partners. So I'm working with Transition Town Totnes, who are helping administer and deliver the project. And yeah, a similar thing is happening in Bridport, because there's also, and we work together and we're sharing knowledge across both the Bridport project and then the Totnes project. And they do have a lot more tangible heritage around flax than perhaps Totnes does, but there is some evidence of former flax mills in Devon and not too far away from Totnes. So yeah, I'm still uncovering what the landscape was like before in past times. So I'd be really interested if anyone has any feedback or any information around flax from any part of the country, really. But yeah, today the focus is Devon. So yeah, we started Totnes Grows Flax about 6 months ago, and it's basically communities learning to grow and process local fiber flax. With the main aim was around enjoyment. So getting people to experience the amazement of growing something and then being able to quite simply process it and see the fiber that's contained within. With one eye in the background on reducing reliance on fast fashion, getting people to understand that we can grow clothes locally, that we used to grow clothes locally, because that kind of knowledge is very much forgotten. And it's amazing how many people don't know that flax creates linen. So we've run the project this year. It's still in progress, really. We came together, so people got 1 square meter of seeds and have grown that in their own gardens or allotments. Everyone grew it really well. We were lucky to have really good instructions. We worked a bit with Vicky Putler from the Flax Project, who's in Plymouth. And then, I have a fair amount of theoretical knowledge around flax, but don't have extreme knowledge around growing. So it's also been a learning process for me this season. So yeah, everyone grew it really well. I think about 50 different places grew it. So we had quite a lot. We came together then to ripple it and to process it. We've done the retting communally. And in November, we're going to come together and we're going to teach people how to use the heritage tools. So we're going to break it. I don't know if everyone's familiar with breaking, which is the first process, then scutching, which removes the rough outer core, and breaking sort of breaks down the woody inner core, and then heckling, which is running through a series of combs, which then produces the finer fiber, which is then ready for spinning. So yeah, it's been growing well. So what have we done? We've grown it around Totnes, around Halberton and Exeter. We've retted quite a lot communally. I've been amazed by the different quality of flax that's grown in different locations. We've also started to apply for funding and done a bit of research into seed sovereignty. We're very interested in developing or finding local varieties, which seems very difficult to find. I have no idea if there are any landrace Devon varieties. I've managed to get some seed from Ireland, which is a couple of varieties that were grown in the 30s. So I'm very interested to grow those next year here. I've got 20 grams of 2 different types of seed. And I think one's called Concurrent, and apparently that's one that was generally grown in the 30s. So yeah, what have we learned? We've learned that the Totnes community are very good at growing. The flax we've grown is strong, very blonde. The Exeter flax grew well and was finer. And I'm really interested in to pursue this to see why. I think the soil is quite similar, but it's maybe a bit more acidic than down here. So yeah, there's a lot of research to be done around the soil. And yeah, I've learned that running a community flax project takes a lot of time, but it's been really good fun and people have really, really enjoyed it and are very enthusiastic to carry on next year. The retting has been interesting. We decided to communally ret the various different types of flax grown, all from the same variety, but the results are a bit mixed because I think, yeah, if the flax isn't pulled at the same time, if it doesn't have the same sort of qualities, then the retting requirements are different. So yeah, I might not do that again. And we found that, you know, access is really important for a community project. We've got to, you know, do this on a farm. We've got to have space. You need space for the water to run off. You need a lot of space to store and dry the flax, all of those things. But it's been a really interesting process. What would we like to do next? So we want to continue with the project. Next year, I'd really like to do something where we create flax stewards. I work with some groups in Europe who are doing very similar things. And there's an amazing museum in Belgium called Texture, and it's a museum dedicated to flax in Belgium. And they have done something they call sort of stewardship, where you have one piece of land, so a slightly larger piece of land, and then people come and they grow and tend the flax on that single piece of land. So I think we might do that next year, because then you can communally ret it, and also people who don't have access to land or gardens can be involved in the project. So yeah, we're looking for a space to do that. But with that, you also need good storage. You need space for drying and processing flax. We would love to bring more schools into the project. We worked with a couple of schools, and the children absolutely loved it, and are completely amazed when the fiber comes out of the stem, and apparently kids were just given stems of flax, and then they just ran off around the playing field and found stones and just sort of figured out themselves how to create fiber without using any tools. And apparently that was really amazing. And yeah, our next steps will be to try and get funding through Heritage Lottery, and if that fails, somewhere else. So yeah, the current plan for our application is to really bring much more historical information into the project this time, and then to disseminate that knowledge through the various events. So I think when you're doing something with your hands, if that's weeding, or even if that's rippling, or if that's scutching and processing, I think you can sort of disseminate heritage knowledge. And I've been to quite a few events where people have sort of shared things around and made things much more physical. And I think it would be a really amazing way to share past knowledge about how people used to grow and process their own clothing locally, and to help people try and connect that to future situations whilst you know, growing flax and processing it themselves. So ultimately within this, we'd like to sort of create a sort of history of flax and have exhibitions, perhaps in combination with rural museums, perhaps in public sites. We've got a museum in Totnes. We'd like to expand into Buckfastleigh, which has a wool hub, and maybe Ashburton Arts, expand into a broader area. And then we'd like to exhibit a community grown spun and woven cloth. And yeah, we will sort of upskill flax stewards across these flax hubs and provide flax growing and processing training, which hopefully will then disseminate that knowledge much more broadly, because then those people can then teach other people how to grow it. And we'll run workshops around, you know, creating cordage, learning how to spin, and maybe weaving workshops as well, so they can turn the flax fiber into an object of their choice. So yeah, so what's next? So we've had some feedback. We need to basically demonstrate an interest and a need for the project. We need to be clear about our heritage. We need to evidence support from partners who will be able to sort of contribute to this project in any way. Yeah, so this is the Totnes flax. So yeah, it came out very beautifully, very strong. And yeah, I look forward to talking more with you about your thoughts around flax or any feedback you might have. I'll just stop sharing now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Zoe. I know we've got some museums in the chat here who have been working with flax. I know Gressenall colleagues have joined us today, but I don't know if there's any particular queries or questions that anyone would like to raise, or questions about Zoe's presentation to start with. You can put your actual hand up or your remote hand. George is waving, so we'll start with George and then come to Peter.
Yeah, I was. I couldn't be bothered to find the emoji, hand emoji. Yeah, could you, as somebody who knows nothing about the processing of flax, could you sort of tell us a bit more about? You talk about what's it, retting, and what are the processes? Because it's not. Excuse me. But perhaps you could tell us a bit more.
Yeah, sure. No, I was thinking as I was going through, I was like, oh, I should have had more detail about the machinery and so on. Yeah. So you have I wonder if I should try and find some imagery, because it's easier to explain through imagery. But I'll try and describe it. So you grow the flax straw, and then you harvest it by pulling by hand, and then you have to ret either on the ground or in a tank or a water source, and then you have to dry that out. And then the next thing is to break it. So basically, I mean, I've got some flax here. You use wooden tools to essentially break the woody outer core out of the flax. And then you sort of scutch it. So you bash it with a wooden blade to remove the rest of the woody bits. And then you'll run it through a series of combs. I've got some here, actually. And then you'll be left with sort of, once you've combed it through, you should be left with a long line fiber, which should be about the length of the flax itself. And then there'll be some shorter fibers. Once you comb it through, you also comb out the shorter fibers, and they're called tow. And you can also spin and use those for various things. So all of the various parts you can use to make, you can use the shiv, which is this woody core, to make mulch and animal bedding. And you can use the tow, you can blend the tow with wool. And you wouldn't normally blend the long line fiber with wool because it's its length that makes it so valuable. I've got some here actually, which is more golden. So you can see it's very soft, very fine. And then this will be spun into yarn, which is quite an art. It's much harder than spinning wool. And industrially, it's a slightly different process to spinning wool or other fibers. But yeah, sorry, I could go on forever talking about that. What was the next question?
No, that's cleared out a little more. Thank you.
I have a question.
Super, thank you. Peter, was that your question as well, or did you have something?
Yes, to ask whether the Devon area is particularly suited from reasons of climate or possibly soil, which you have mentioned, to flax growing, and was it historically a flax growing area?
Well, I find it actually really quite difficult to get clarity on this, because in some places it mentions that Devon was a good flax growing area, and apparently there were 3 flax mills at one time in Devon. But I have yet to do in-depth historical research just because of my capacity, and part of this project will be to really go into depth and uncover this. I think the thing with flax is, over the years, many places have tried to grow it on and off because they think it's potentially a lucrative thing to do, but it's very involved and it requires a lot of knowledge and a lot of steps. And yeah, it definitely was grown in Devon, and it was grown everywhere. Beyond 300 years ago, it was grown everywhere, and ordinary people would have made and processed their clothing from it locally. But the detail on that is not clear.
Okay. Could I just briefly ask one other question? How is it grown then? You mentioned about the seeds. When do you actually plant the seeds, and when is it harvested?
Yeah, it's grown, you plant around sort of mid-April, and then it's harvested July, August. It takes about 90 to 100 days. So it's very quick growing. And then it's usually harvested by hand. It's pulled from the roots. That leaves a very clean field for the next crop.
Okay, thank you.
It's a good crop in rotation. It used to be there's a really amazing girl doing some work around the pollen record through FeedSac's database, and they can see that there were so many interesting crop rotations a few hundred years ago, and they can pinpoint what was grown in exactly what field and when through the pollen record, and they can see that flax was grown a lot. It was probably one of the first crops we started cultivating in Britain. It's just not widely known about.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter. I think it was Rachel, then Juliet, then Charlie, if that's okay. So Rachel.
Hi there. Hi. I'm really glad Juliet's going next because I was just going to say, as you alluded to, Hannah, Gresson Hall over the past year or so has been growing flax at our Rural Life Museum and workhouse. It's been going really, really well. So hopefully Juliet wouldn't mind saying a little bit more about that. But I thought it was really cool, the idea of giving seeds to participants and community members and them growing flax at home. I just wanted to know a bit more about how that went and who were the people you were giving the seeds to? How did you kind of find them and work with them?
Yeah, well, that's kind of why I went with joining up with Transition Town Totnes, because I thought they've got a good database of people in the Totnes area. And yeah, so we communicated through then, and we also had, you know, BBC Devon did a little article, and we're good at sort of sharing the word, and then people just came and picked up seeds. We did a kickoff meeting where we talked, you know, we explained what it was, explained about flax, and then people came and just picked up little have little packets of, let's see if I can find one, a little packet of seeds that were given out. And yeah, it was enough for them to grow 2 square meters. And it's about, I forget how many grams, like 20 grams of seed in a little packet. And yeah, we had a little booklet that we gave people, and yeah, off they went, and they did really well. We have a Signal group, which is instead of a WhatsApp group, where people can ask questions, but not everybody was on that. And then we sent out emails, you know, at key points in the process. And yeah, it was still ongoing because we haven't actually done the processing bit yet. So that's going to be interesting to see how many people can handle. I've got one sort of big sort of flax break unit. There's a place called Flaxland. I don't know if you're familiar with Simon. I've got one of his units for processing. And then Vicky Putler, who I work with, has another one. But basically, we're going to use hand tools. We're going to just use basically a stick like this. You can just break the flax over using your hand, and then a dog comb, and that will process it. So actually, this is all you really need for a mini flax processing kit. So we're going to go with this when we do the community, because we're not quite sure how many people will show up, and we yeah,
you might need a lot of equipment. Are you are you hoping to get as far as spinning or even weaving, or is that yeah
we'd really sorry, I've just got to let my dog out 1 second. They always do online. 1 sec.
I guess as Zoe was saying, it's that kind of difficulty though, if you've then got lots of flax produced in lots of different environments, they might have harvested at the different times, or I guess I don't know how susceptible flax is to sunnier spots, damper spots, or
it really likes sunny, open, very well prepared ground. But most people's grew really well. But then some did leave it in the ground longer than 100 days, and it can get a bit hard. So this summer was very strange weather. You know, it was very hot. So I think we just have to be sort of open-minded to what kind of qualities of flax we're going to get. Because it is very weather dependent. Even with the same seed and the same variety, you can get very different results.
Be interesting to see how those sort of slightly different grown ones like come together then.
Yeah, it will. But you know, we don't have we're not, we're hoping to learn to spin, but we haven't set ourselves the intention of making some beautiful cloth or anything yet. I think maybe next year we'll aim for that, because it's all quite it's the
process that's
the process. Yeah.
Fantastic. Juliet, I'd like to bring you into discussions. I know you've got a question anyhow, but equally if you can say more about the Flax and Fleece project at Gresson Hall Farm and Workhouse.
Yes, yeah, I do have a question, but I'll set it into context first. So I started growing flax at the museum about 3 years ago. And I'm very fortunate because I've got a great historical legacy to pick up on. And what inspired me was the discovery of a wonderful document called the Spinning Record Book that dates back to the 1790s. And it's a weekly account of how much flax and hemp was spun here when this was a house of industry. And that just kind of inspired me. And I just thought it would be wonderful to see what is involved in producing flax. And that was the beginning, a bag of seed and a patch of land. And 3 years later, we now have a thriving flax project, very much along the lines of your project, Zoe.
Yeah.
Very similar aims. We're fortunate because we have a public-facing role, so we're able to now hold monthly demonstrations of processing. I've got a volunteer team that have come on board now. So yeah, it's been wonderful. So we're able to not only talk about the historical legacy, and obviously Norfolk and Suffolk were real areas for both flax and hemp. We've got Lopham linen. You talk about seed varieties. We had the flax factory at West Newton with the Flax Research Centre. And I, like you, I've managed to source some. It's taken a little bit of an investigation, but I've managed to source some seed from 4 Norfolk varieties that were pioneered in the 1950s. So we'll hopefully be growing those next year. But we are now at the stage, which is wonderful, that we are spinning and weaving. We've made some lovely bits of cloth and cordage and buttons. And it's exactly that. It's about involving people, showcasing the skills, but also with a nod to fast fashion. I mean, obviously the game changer for any of these small projects would be some sort of mechanization, because the hours and hours and hours it has taken us to get to the stage where we have got our first bits of woven cloth, or even spinning enough of the flax yarn to be able to use it is, well, you can't count it really. So my question was about the report that you did, Zoe, that you mentioned at the very start. Is that available? Because I'd be really interested in what you discovered from these small scale projects across Europe in terms of how they are working with their flax and what they are able to do with it.
Yeah, we maybe we could have another conversation, Juliet, because I'm working with some other partners. We have developed the small scale machinery. So what we didn't find any in Europe, and ironically we're working with some groups in Europe who are also interested in using the machinery that we're in the middle of developing. So
wow.
Yeah, there was some small scale. I don't know if you're familiar with taproot fiber in Canada, but maybe if you type in Zoe Gilbertson bioregional Churchill bast fibers, the report will come up.
Okay.
I'll put a link in the chat actually.
Okay.
And then, but things have moved on a little bit since then. So yeah, it might be good to have a conversation, because I'm also part of this network, this new network of, some of them are museums, some of them are just individuals like me who run very small community flax projects, and some of them are quite big. Like in Germany, they've started a small scale, heritage flax project, and they've got thousands and thousands of people signed up growing small bits of flax. And so we have this network that is in the process of forming. So it might be,
oh wow, that would be
you to join that network, because there's about 7 or 8 different countries who, and we're just starting, we don't have any funding or anything, but the aim is to get some funding for the network to then start knowledge sharing around all of these subjects that we're talking about.
That would be absolutely brilliant, because I know one of the collaborators that you mentioned is Fibershed Southwest, and I don't think that the Eastern region has a fibre shed movement. So that was going to be my next kind of thing about whether we could set something up in the Eastern region. So yeah, any networking would be fantastic.
Well, I think, do you know Claire? You know Claire from
Contemporary Hempery.
Yeah. So she's in the Bass Fibre Network, and I think she's probably the most connected person in your sort of area at this point.
Okay.
Because often the fibre shed movement.
Sorry, if I can put you and Juliet in contact, if
sorry, we might go on.
Right, sorry.
no, that would be brilliant.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we'll have a chat offline.
Okay.
I'm very conscious Charlie's been
sorry.
a hand up, so Charlie.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Right. First, just a little bit of background. Several years ago, I was trying to find information for my own community where there was a flax mill, and that the last bits of that were demolished a few years ago. And there was a lot of flax growing and flax mills in the East Riding. And then about 10 years ago, I was involved in the landscape partnership for the Isle of Axholme and Hatfield Chase. And I did some preliminary work in connection with a project which I hoped to happen, but I had unfortunately to leave that project before it was implemented. But there was a proposal to excavate retting pits in the Isle of Axholme. So there were still some fairly recent vestiges of the industry locally. But going on from that, really my questions were, is there actually a national network in the UK interested in the history of flax and flax mills? I know there is commercial growing of flax because I've seen it in fields around here, over the last few years. Great big blue fields, they're fantastic. And
where
also,
are you sorry, Charlie, where are you exactly?
I'm based in the East Riding of Yorkshire.
Right. Oh yeah, they are. There are people growing flax up in Yorkshire. Yeah.
And also wondering whether the Mills Group would have information, because I know they're obviously plotting water mills and windmills, but I don't know whether they're actually plotting, haven't looked recently, flax mills. So it's partly the sort of historical side of, who is actually doing the background research on where they were, and maybe recording any sort of vestiges of material cultural buildings now. And second, are there other people sort of, particularly in my area, in Yorkshire area, but in the north anyway, who are sort of interested in the whole subject around flax and how it was used or might be used?
Yeah. I don't know. No one in my sort of network is from Yorkshire, but it doesn't mean there isn't anything happening. There's a fair few people in Scotland. There's someone who's growing at a museum in Wales. And yeah, there was a fibre shed in the north, but I don't think they have any more information than I would. Yeah, it would be really, really good to try and find out, if maybe through the museums network, what if there is anyone, because maybe I don't know them, and it would be amazing to connect with any flax researchers, or like you say, through the mills. Because we have a mill in, there is a building in Totnes, which is really which is not far from Totnes, which is a water mill. But it seems to have milled everything over time. It milled flax, but I'm not sure for how long. It says it was a flax mill in the historical record, but I think it was only a flax mill for, I don't know, maybe 50 years. And then it was a paper mill. And before that, it was milling something else. So these things, they change all the time, I think, in mills. And I would really love to sort of pinpoint, what happened and where and when. But I don't think anyone's done a really good survey yet.
Well, perhaps via the museums network website, which is slightly more accessible than some others, if there could be maybe a follow-up note asking, if anybody's doing it, and maybe the British Agricultural History Society might be able to input something as well.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Well, I can definitely make a note to kind of make sure that we put it out to the Royal Museums Network. Ollie's just come on screen, so I don't know if he's got any other possible links that we can put it out through, and maybe through the Royal Museums Network website, even if we start to just collate some of those links of organisations, networks, so that it kind of maybe starts as a bit of a gateway into those, if
Thanks.
make those connections.
I was just going to very quickly say, obviously I can pass news to the British Agricultural History Society, so if you send me a note or a write-up or something, they're always looking for stuff for their newsletter. I can put you in touch, so if you want to email me off list.
Yeah, sure, that would be great.
I'll put you two in touch as well. There we go. Brilliant.
And IEMA, of course, as well. I'm not sure anyone mentioned them, but International Association of Agricultural Museums would be good. To have a congress coming up next year in Germany, which is about intangible cultural heritage. So this feels like, living history kind of approach. So keen to go and talk about it in Germany. I think the call for papers is out at the moment.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Sounds good.
I'd love to do that.
We've got lots of volunteers there now, Ollie.
Yeah, I'd definitely be up for that.
maybe you can co-create a paper.
Yeah.
But if you again send me a message off here, and I can hopefully send you the call for papers if it's not obvious on the web. I'm hoping it hasn't closed yet. I don't think it has.
Well, Charlie, Zoe, and Juliet, are you happy for me to share all your details all together, as it were? And then if you want to follow up on, and anyone else who wants to just
would be great.
Then maybe that's a way of moving that forward. But equally, sharing any links that we've got, and let's say we can pop something up on the Royal Museums Network website, so that that's publicly accessible. But also we can put something out on our email, JISC mail mailing list that enables all of our members to hopefully jump in if they've got other suggestions. Members who aren't here today, I'll do it as part of the sharing of this recording. Ollie.
Well, I didn't know whether Charlie had a hand up before me, but it's been up for a while.
Charlie, I don't know if you've said everything you wanted to ask, or?
Yeah, that's fine. Sorry.
No, you're all right.
Okay. I was just going to say, I'm also in the middle of trying to put the final touches to a session for the Oxford Real Farming Conference, which is about museums and heritage, and the blurb of which I cannot now find, having thought I might just read it out. But essentially it's about how museums and agroecologists can work more closely together. So if you're interested in attending the Oxford Real Farming Conference, you'd be very welcome to be part of our workshop. I'm convening it with Jason Nyala from the University of Oxford and Atunchong Lukubu from Royal Agricultural University. And what we are currently lacking are growers and farmers. I've got irons in the fire with a few, but no one's yet fully committed. So
well,
again,
we're also doing a session. I say we, that's me and the inventor of the small scale machinery and the two guys in Bridport, and the Wessex Community Assets have been doing their part of the project, has really been working intensively with farmers. So and Dave Dixon has done a huge amount of research into the heritage in Bridport and can talk for hours about flax and what happened there and the culture, but he's also been working closely with farmers, so he could I think it would be really good. We'll definitely come to the
you're basically a counterpoint to our session, which is sort of suggesting museums and farmers and growers don't work closely enough together, and there's a lot of mileage in looking at heritage in terms of agroecology. But it's great to have solid examples to inspire stuff, and we're going to hopefully break out into different tables and discuss different aspects of agroecological thinking, indigenous ideas, local food and farming traditions, and you'd be very welcome to occupy a table and share and collate some ideas that might help inspire work in other areas as well. So yeah.
Excellent.
Fantastic. I've just been trying to catch up on chat messages. Fee, I don't know if you're able to say a bit more about the recent trip to Newark, the Norwich University of the Arts. You've mentioned in the
I'll be really brief as I've
chat.
got somebody else waiting to meet with me at 1:45, and I realise we're on that point now. But we, as I mentioned in the chat and sent a link to as well, our Instagram post about it, the Flax and Fleece project was sought out by one of our local universities in Norwich, the University of the Arts. They were looking for participants for their essentially almost like a mock trade show for textiles, fashion, and fashion promotion and business students. And it covered a range of first to third year students, all of whom were welcome to come to a series of talks throughout the day. But simultaneously, we also had representation as kind of stalls, I suppose, for lack of a better term. And Juliet and team were singled out by the university for the project's really clear connection with sustainability, which a lot of fashion, textiles, etc., art students are really interested in at the minute. So we were making that connection and that link for them through the project and through the conversations we had on the day as a team with students who wanted to find out different ways they might reconceive of how they not only work with fabrics in their final products, but how actually those fibers are sourced, and how some historic and heritage methods of making and production and processing might actually mindfully really connect with all of their processes of making on a bigger, wider, slightly more commercially led scale. So we were there to try and add a bit of balance and it went down really well. There was hugely positive take up. Students were really keen and interested, and we already have got a lot of interest in folks coming to see the processing occurring on the days when we offer that to the public, included with admission next year. We've got our first date already lined up and ready. But exactly like George said earlier, unless you actually have seen the process of how flax is dealt with, not many people would know exactly what those steps look like. So it's something we really value being able to share with people on site as part of our visitor programme. And that's everything from me.
That's brilliant. Yeah, excellent.
Super, thank you, Fee. I'm conscious Fee needs to go, and some other colleagues have already had to leave. But was there any other questions, queries for Zoe, or other suggestions? I will put everyone who wanted to be put in contact in touch with each other. So hopefully we can continue those discussions, but also bring those back to the Royal Museums Network as a wider entity. Hopefully, create some more links and connections, and see where flax production goes, both in Totnes, in Norfolk, in the East Riding of Yorkshire, and beyond. So
there's also yes. Sorry, I should just say there is also Bridget Kaltenbacher, who's doing Let's Grow Flax in the South Downs, which is the museum. It's the museum that's on TV. I always forget the name of it. Where they do the
Downland.
Yeah. So she's done quite a bit with flax there as well, I should say. And she's a good contact of mine as well. If anyone wants.
It sounds like it would be handy to gather all these together, at least in one place, so that those so who those looking for those historical connections, but equally other resources and ways to take it to the next step as well, can hopefully move forward.
Brilliant.
What a fascinating Chewing the Cud. Thank you so much, Zoe, for inspiring such a rich discussion. And without further ado, I'll let you all get back to the rest of your afternoons, and hope to see you at another Royal Museums Network event soon. Thank you ever so much.